Okay, we got some feedback there. I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. Anyway, good. Okay, we got some feedback there. I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. Anyway, good. Okay, we got some feedback there. I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. Anyway, good. Okay, we got some feedback there. I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. Anyway, good. Okay, we got some feedback there. I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. Anyway, I apologize, you all. I apologize, you all. Hold on just for a minute, I'll solve this. Hold on just for a minute, I'll solve this. Okay, I think I have it straight. Thank you. Appreciate your patience. And I'm Slim Overton, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition Show. Now, I'm here, of course, every Thursday evening. Our host and moderator is Leah Drake Stick, but she's not here this evening. She's being recognized by a group tonight, so she won't be with us. But we do have co-host Thomas the Colonel Chapman, and we have a special guest host, Pamela Nichols. Hello, Pam. How you doing? Welcome back.
Wonderful. I'm wonderful. Thank
And
you.
Pam
Thank
is
you.
Pam is also a book author and an editor, and among other things. And she can mention that what she's doing. But our guest for the evening is Kaleema Overton Ameen, and she has been here before to talk about her book, Hidden in Plain Sight. And I thought it would be appropriate to bring her back to give us sort of an update. And what I really want to know is that she's been out there on the circuit for a while, traveling around, talking about her book. I want to know how it's being received. And I was part of a panel of guys that had a discussion about it, which followed up with a panel of ladies. And we had, I guess, would you say we had different takes on how we received the book, or it was pretty much the same as just a male perspective versus a female perspective? What would you say?
As far as the men and the women, definitely a different perspective. I think that I started with the men first because a lot of people saw the cover of my book and thought it was a male bashing book, and they immediately jumped to that. So I said, let me start with the men first. But I think across the board, all of the men felt that it was something that was useful for them in protecting the women in their lives, their daughters and sisters and mothers and aunts and play cousins and any woman, that might be subjected to this type.
Oops.
Uh-oh.
I think that that was the overall view of the men who read the book. And I just wanted to make sure that men didn't feel villainized by the book. And so I had actually had 15 men read my book before I even went to the publisher, because I said, if they feel villainized by the book, then I have to do more work, because that wasn't my intent. So I was happy to hear that those 15 men and you all, that none of, and other men who have read it did not feel that way.
So briefly, let us know if someone joining for the first time, and what was your motivation to write the book? And I remember when we talked the first time, you had reservations about kind of sharing such a personal story, but you felt the need to share that. So tell us a little bit about that. Your motivation for actually doing what you had reservations about in the first place.
Yes. I did not set out to write a book, not like this. And professionally, I'm a federal policy analyst, so I write and research all the time. But when there came a time where I had gone on an anniversary vacation with my then husband and my son, and he abandoned us on the vacation. I'm kind of skipping forward. I just as a way to just kind of get some clarity and even to soothe myself, I just started writing because I had been writing like short stories and poetry since I was 12. And that was just a love for me. And so I just kind of leaned into that, just to kind of figure out like, why do people do this? And who does this happen to? And so I just kind of stumbled through that process. And it wasn't with the intent of writing a book. It was just for the intent of getting clarity and just to kind of soothe myself because that's something I enjoy. And then it just kind of blossomed and someone said, you need to write a book. And I didn't want to write a book just about my experience because the more I talked to other women about what had happened to me, then I was getting, oh, that happened to me, or it happened to my sister, it happened to my coworker, it happened to my cousin. And I realized, oh, this is something that this tragic thing is becoming so commonplace. And so that's why I decided to interview women from different backgrounds, who Muslim, Christian, Catholic, African American, South American, Caucasian, to see if there was any type of difference, but the only pattern was a behavior of the narcissist. It didn't matter about their social, economic, or ethnic or religious background. They all experienced the same thing. And so when I looked at the pattern of behavior of the men, I realized, oh, these are 9. That's how I developed those 9 red flags. These are things that are common across socioeconomic backgrounds and religious backgrounds. I hope I didn't go too far, but yeah.
No, no, that's
No, that was
fine.
good.
And you mentioned about the narcissism, and it's so funny. Every time, the first time and this time when I'm reading up on the definition of that term, after each definition or even your red flags, and I'll just throw this in here, kind of like this. Every definition came up: Trump, Trump, Trump,
Yep.
Trump.
Mhm.
Anyway, I just had to throw that in. But the Colonel or Pam, if you have any questions or comments you'd like to say at this time to our guests, and we'll get more into the book. We don't want to give all the book away because she's still trying to get to that bestseller status. So we don't want to expose everything. But questions from you.
I do. As you go through this journey, and it's not unlike male and females in the breakup, and it's so sudden, and then so you have the 9 red flags. And I'd like you to go over those 9 red flags. But now that you've made a little further down this road of self-discovery, and you've identified these 9 things, what made you say made you miss those 9 things and get to the end point where he just had to go? He just had to pick up his keys and
Okay.
go.
Um, that was loaded. So the first thing I want to comment on is the breakup. We're not talking about a breakup. I'm sorry. When I first started writing the book, I thought I was going to do a book about abandonment, but it turned out that every aspect of abandonment led to narcissism, and this is one of the key hallmarks of the narc, right? And so we're not talking about when people, they determine that they're going to separate, and they have a discussion, and they both know, or they may not both agree, but they both know we're going our separate ways. That's a breakup.
Mm-hmm.
With the narcissist, there will be no breakup. There will be a disappearance. Okay. One or both. Sometimes the narc will disappear, and sometimes the narc will make the other person disappear, because narcissism is on a spectrum. The high end of that spectrum is a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
At the core, they're a narcissist. And at the low end is the everyday run of the mill narc. And you have the malignant narc, the Trumps, and then you have the covert narc, the one that looks like the good guy. They call that the white narc, the white knight narc, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to clarify that we're not talking about like a separation, a divorce, where you have a conversation, we're going to go our separate ways. We're talking about going on a vacation with, your family, and the person just leaves you there. We're talking about coming home and the person just is gone. The person just disappears. And this is what the narc will do to also, because they don't want to have accountability, they don't want to give you closure, and they want to provide that final insult and injury. So when you think about the serial K, I'm gonna say it that way because some social platforms you can't say that word.
Mhm.
When you think about the serial K, their breakup is they're going to do this, cast you about, put you in some hidden place. This is the breakup, right? And then the other person, they just disappear, or you come home and they put you out. And there's no prelude to that. There's no conversation. There's no inkling. You're in a happy marriage, and all of a sudden it's no more. It's like you went on a vacation, someone fell off the side of a cruise, which, by the way, people go on cruises and don't come back, but
Happens.
they didn't fall. They didn't just happen to fall off the side of the cruise, right? So I'm sorry. I just want to go to that because oftentimes people say, "Oh, well, I mean, it's just a divorce. It's a separation." It's not. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this. And I'm sorry. What was the second part of your question?
Wait, it was deep, and so I was going to get you to talk about the 9 flags,
Mhm.
red flags, but now I've gotten into it's what you was talking about makes it stimulate this next question.
Okay.
Is that so after after a narcissist breaks up, do they actually try to hold power over the other spouse?
Oh, most definitely. And so once the narcissist does what they call the discard, it's really called a discard. And when you think about someone putting trash out, because just like the serial K, the narc, even the lowest level of the narc, some of them are dangerous and some are not. They don't see you as an individual that has, human rights, that has rights to your mental, spiritual, physical, and financial well-being. You're just an object that they can discard when they're done with it. And that's why in the technical term, not that I'm making this is what the experts in the field, that stage is called the discard. That's why it's called that. They're just going to throw you away, right? And so that's what we're talking about. So I just want to keep emphasizing that because people kind of brush it aside when they say, but people break up all the time. People get divorced all the time, you know.
But you had a key word, you said dangerous. So if the narcissist is that one of them on the scale of danger, saying, I don't want you anymore, but nobody else is going to have you anymore.
Yes.
And even after divorce, you can't really have another relationship. And some of them I see you can't have another relationship because say if somebody wants to, fill in his spot, I'm gonna kill him. Is that the narcissist piece?
Well,
Nobody else can have you. So
right.
you have to be a single entity of actually property is a better word of the other spouse forever.
And you ask, will they come back? Well, what they call the narcissist will circle back around to people who haven't figured them out. Once the mask has slipped and you see behind the mask, they will run and they won't come back. That's the only good thing. Once they realize, but if they think that you don't really see who they are behind the mask, they will keep circling around. And this is how people, and like they will like get rid of you. Like you're saying, this thing's happen, but they will keep circling around as long as they can because their goal is to feed off of you mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. And as long as they can do it, they will. And oftentimes people feel like, oh, they're coming back because they want to make things right. And people become trauma bonded. And you're not bonded to the trauma that they're giving you. You're bonded to the hope of change. And so they have this love bombing where they're kind of sucking you in. The love bombing feels good. They're love bombing you, your family, your friends, your coworkers, the neighbor, the dog, the cat, the fish. They're sucking everyone into this great feeling, this good feeling. And then comes the bad behavior. And then when you call them out, they'll say, oh, I didn't know you didn't like that. I didn't know that bothered you. I'm going to do better. And then they'll do better for a little bit to suck you back in. And that's how you get trauma bonded because you're getting sucked into the hope of change. And as soon as they see you're relaxed again, they start with the abuse. And the abuse could be mental, physical, spiritual, or financial. And then so they have the love bombing, the bad behavior, the correction, the love bombing, and they keep you going around, and then you're stuck in this cycle in the hope that they're going to change until they finally discard you. That discard could be abandoning the family. It could be, doing away with the family. It could be, casting the family out, that discard will come. And it's the same cycle every time. They don't change.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it at home, they do it
Right.
at work, they do it in the religious community. And religious communities are a great hunting ground for the narc because everyone has their guard down.
And Kaleema, we kind of
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's okay. We kind of jumped to the breakup part and all that, but keeping in line with the hidden in plain sight title, it's like a honeymoon period, or
Mhm.
like you define as a grooming period that these guys go through before they even really define as narcissists, because you don't know that. you know Talk about, and you had that experience too, and then you had these interviews with these other ladies, but talk about that period, how this guy, even because if you knew him as that way in the beginning, you probably wouldn't get together with him. So talk about how they groom their and I don't want to say victims now, they end up being sort of like victims, but they
Right.
groom the people that they want to be with. Talk about that, because that's kind of the beginning of the whole thing before all this breakup thing happens.
Yes. Because that you're talking about the 3 stages. The love bombing is stage 1, the demeaning and spirit breaking is stage 2, and then the abandonment and discard is stage 3. So in that grooming period, that's what I like to call the me too, me too, me too. When you first meet the narc, whatever you say you want to do, whatever your hopes and dreams and aspirations, whatever you want for your family, for yourself, they're going to say me too, me too, me too. No matter what you say, I want to start a business. Me too. I want to pay off my debt. Me too. I want to buy a house. Me too. I want to take care of my family, my parents in their senior years. Me too. Me too. Me too. Me too. Because they're trying to align themselves with you so you feel safe. And they're not only going to align themselves with you, they're going to align themselves with you, your family, your friends, your coworkers, the neighbor. It's going to be me too, me too, me too, enough to go around for everyone. So now everyone has their guard down because you think, oh, we have like wants and needs and dreams and aspirations. And so we're soulmates. We have all these things in common. But when someone is being authentic, you're not going to have everything in common. Like my best friend and I, we go back and forth about whatever because we're being our authentic self. I have a twin sister. We're not exactly alike. When someone has been their authentic self, you're going to have differences, and that's okay. It should be. But when someone's aligning themselves with you, like the narc will, you won't find that. And so you'll fall into this safe space where you feel like we have an understanding mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. We have this understanding. We're here. And I don't have to have my guard up anymore. And so now the guard is gone.
Hmm. Is it
I wanted to mention 2 things. I wanted to mention 2 things. That me too, me too, me too, because that's happened to me. That's actually mirroring so that you so that you feel a connection. And the thing is, there are telltale signs. I love the title, Hidden in Plain Sight, because when you look back on it, you're like, I should have saw that. There's a rush. There's a rush to intimacy. There's a rush to connection. They want you to connect so that you will see them as your soulmate, and you will not be willing to break away from them because you're so much alike. And it's the specific language they use. I had one tell me once, I never thought I'd meet someone like you. And that's something every woman wants to hear.
Intervention.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're right.
Okay, so yeah. So
yeah, mirroring is a technical word also. And grooming. I just call it the me too I try to put things in like the
so people understand it, right?
Yes, but you're right. It is called mirroring. It's called grooming. And love bombing, and they're all the same thing. And it's interesting. I was on another interview, and the lady that was on the interview, she works with people who are groomed for sex trafficking. And so when she and I were talking, we were talking about the same thing. And so the narcissist grooms people the same way they groom people for sex trafficking, to participate in drug use, the way they groom children. The narc has the same process, really, essentially, because they have to make you feel safe, and the grooming has to feel good, because if they're not making it feel good, they can't suck you in, and they're just sucking you and everyone in. So they're sucking in. It's a lot of work for them. Because when they're sucking in your whole family and your friends and your co-workers, they're trying to compromise your safe spaces. So when the abuse comes, and it's coming, mental, physical, spiritual, or financial, when it comes,
You won't have anywhere to go to. Right.
They're going to say, what do you mean? He cuts my grass all the time. What do you mean they keep my kids? What do you mean they did this and that and the third? Then what are you talking about? Yeah.
You say it's a lot of work, and it is a lot of work for them. How do they choose their target? How do they know that this one will let me, but that one won't? Keeping in mind that it is so much work. How do they choose their target?
Contrary to popular belief, the narc is not a bottom feeder. And people think, I'm not calling people bottom feeders because everyone has worth, but people think that the narc is going for the easy prey, but they're not. The narc is so self-indulged and so self-important that they're really always like a shark swimming at the top. They're looking for those people who have authentic family and friends, authentic connections. They have a nice career. They're good arm candy. They have careers. They have family. They have friends. They have community, because they want to suck off of them. They want to use them as a beard, because it makes them look safe. It makes them look worthy. It makes them look important. Like, look at me. I have this person. So, I'm like the rest of you. So they'll pretend to be involved in religion, in politics, in education, or they may really be involved just to find these people. No, it doesn't mean the people here who are more vulnerable, I'll put it that way, it doesn't mean they're not going to take advantage of them too. I mean, it's a narc. Why not? They have, they just do what take advantage of everyone. But their target is going to be that person that they see that's kind of shining. And so I always often tell people, don't think because you got sucked in by the narc, that means you have some kind of self-esteem issues, because they're going for people with high self-esteem. Their goal is to suck up your self-esteem for themselves and leave you just destroyed.
And then break you. Right.
Mm-hmm. And break you. That's their goal. And that's why your silence is their power. Because if you're talking and telling people about them, it takes away their power, because they're dependent on you to be quiet and to be ashamed that you were, that you fell for this bait and switch.
And you also wanted to get your message out to many people. That's why, and you are the Muslim faith, your way of life, but you also included with scriptures from the Quran and the Bible. Letting people know that this is just not for the people of the Muslim faith, also Christians, and anybody who goes through the same thing. So, and you can discuss, because as we get back to the breakups and leaving, in some cultures, or some people believe, they don't believe in divorce. I mean, people that believe in the Bible, certain areas in the Bible that they can justify that you just stay with the person forever. And there's certain steps you have to take in the Muslim faith when you're breaking up. So that can be difficult for the woman or the person that the narc has taken into their fold. So talk about it.
Actually, that's a misnomer. It's actually easier for a Muslim woman to get a divorce than.
Is it? That's changed now?
Yes.
It wasn't always the case, though, right?
We definitely have that power that has been given to us in the Quran, and we can ask for divorce. And then the criteria actually is even, when it comes to the abuse, mental, physical, spiritual, and financial, if the husband is not providing for the family, a Muslim woman can say she wants to request divorce on that alone. And I know in some Christian faiths, it has to be some kind of extreme abuse, but this is not the case for Muslim women. That and it's contrary to what people believe, because I think people focus more on the Middle Eastern concept of Islam, and it's a lot of things you see on TV is a part of their culture. It's not a part of the religion. And if you're looking at it from the outside, it looks one and the same, but it's not. And so those cultural things that you're talking about where the women are really oppressed, it is cultural to those, it's germane to those countries in their culture and the politics of that country. It's not Islam, okay? And so women have a lot of rights and power in Islam, but it may vary from country to country, not because the religion is changing, but because the culture is changing.
Mhm.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of put that in there. But
Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
with the women in my book, they were Muslim, Catholic, and Christian. And some of them, the religion played a huge part because, like I said, when the narc is hunting, the religious circles are easy prey because everyone is relaxed, and you think that everyone near you, they say look to your left, look to your right, and okay, you think everyone near you has the same goals and aspirations for their family and for themselves. The narc will change religions. They will hop from mosque to mosque, from church to church, and they will hop from religion to religion. They don't care. Their only affinity is to themselves. So you will find a narc that's a Muslim change to a Christian, or vice versa, or change mosques or change churches, because they're constantly reinventing themselves. Once the mask slips off and they run, you will find them popping up like a weed. You pull the weed over here and it pops up over there. It's like the little game you play at the fair, and you popping and hitting the things and they keep popping up. And so when I talk to the women about religion, and I did include the quotes from the Quran and the Bible, and I say in the beginning of the book, this is not a religious discussion and debate. I'm showing the similarities between the religions and how both religions, talk against this behavior, and both religions provide women the power to protect themselves. And so I included those verses, and then the ayats, which is verses in the Quran that were similar, because I didn't want people to get kind of tangled up in debating religion. It's not about religion. I included religion because the religious organizations are an easy hunting ground. We need to protect our organizations because they can be infiltrated by the narc, and we need to protect the people that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would believe
Yeah, you stated that the narc looks for, now say saying this is a man narc, looking for a woman that is up here. What is the explanation for all the women that just say, I gotta have a man, and I'm supporting this man forever, doesn't do anything, doesn't go work, but stays on the machine, on Netflix or whatever, just plays the game. He brings nothing to the household. And I'll say, or you could have she's living Section 8, nothing's going on, there's no economic, viability there. And then, but I still got to have a man that's still taking me down.
Well, I guess I would say all bad behavior does not a narcissist make.
Yes.
Some of the things you described as bad behavior.
Yes.
Some people have bad behavior. They don't have upbringing. They don't have home training. They don't have all these things that exhibit this bad behavior. But it doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. And now people use the word narcissist so freely. Anybody they see exhibiting undesirable behavior, that's, oh, they're a narc, or being selfish. They're a narc. Oh, they're self-centered. They're a narc. No, there's a whole list of criteria that will lead you to say, okay, this person is a narcissist. And so during my research for my book, I could see, okay, now I see, for example, if you're having, let's say Pamela's having a birthday party and her other person is coming, and they show up and they're late, and because you had some disagreement, they're late, they're acting the fool. Everyone can see it. It's just shenanigans and tomfoolery for everyone to see. They don't care who sees them acting the fool. They don't have home training. They don't have good behavior. This is just a person with bad behavior. But the narc is not going to do that. The narc is going to show up and bring Pam the best gift. He's going to have hugs and kisses all around for her family, her friends. He's going to sing her praises. He's going to do everything to make everyone just enjoy his presence. But when they leave, he's going to come in.
When he gets home.
All the attention. Why do you have to? Yeah. Why do you have to have this attention? Why are you bringing this attention to yourself? Why do you always, it's your birthday, it's your anniversary, it's you graduated from, you got a degree, you got a promotion, you retired. Anything you have going in your favor is an affront to them. It's a threat to them. So now they're going to come in on you, but after everyone leaves. But you see the difference? The person with the bad behavior, it's going to be right out there for everyone to see. The narc is not going to do that. And so when you're talking about these women and the man you described who's lazy and shiftless, he's playing games, he doesn't work, he just has bad behavior, no work ethic, he's lazy, he's a bum. Doesn't mean he's a narc. He's just a bum.
Yeah.
Yeah. The narc has intent. That's, I guess, how you can divide it to the intent. And the narc has intent to deceive. Where the person with bad behavior, they're just exhibiting bad behavior, right? But the narc has a whole intention from the beginning. It's not coming along later. This is their intent going in, to deceive, to abuse, to use. And during my research, I read about the frontal cortex of the brain, and it was saying that people who have narcissistic personality disorder, not the person with bad behavior, but the actual narc, that the frontal cortex of their brain is smaller. And but similar, people who have ongoing depression and anxiety, the frontal cortex of their brain actually does the same thing, and it can go into atrophy. So it's actually a physical and psychological disorder. And so there are different people, the person with bad behavior and the narc.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of talk for say, you have your kids, you mentioned you have your sons, right?
I have one son.
One son. So he becomes of age and he's getting ready to bring, or he's out on the dating scene. I'll use him as an example. So what kind of talk do you have him to say, this is what you're not looking for, or this is what you're looking for?
Well, we have to set like the criteria that we're going to have for our kids. With my glasses have something going on here. The criteria that we have to have parameters, and that's why if we have religious beliefs, we have to use those as our guardrails for our parameters in life, but we want to always try to look for someone who exhibits empathy for other people, because the narc has no empathy. This is their major flaw, is that they have no empathy. They don't have the ability, just like the serial killer. Mm-hmm. They can do this to you because they have no concept of what this does to you, how it feels to you mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. The narc can't relate to that, and they don't care. Okay. And so when you're talking about telling people, or whether they're teenagers or even 70, 60-year-old people are getting, conned by the narc, but they're not seeing this person in a way that they lack empathy for others. And sometimes you won't see it. You won't see it in the grooming stage, in the love bombing stage. But what'll happen is they'll say things that make you say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Or you'll see them do things that don't make sense. You'll see them act just kind of in a way, like if you see them kind of dismissive of people who are weak or vulnerable, or, someone who is homeless, or they're just dismissive of people, and it doesn't mean they're a narc, but it's like once these things start piling up, you have to kind of check them off and say, call a thing a thing, right? We want to look for people who are authentic, who are open, who are transparent, and be able to ask questions, because a lot of times we don't ask questions because we feel it's rude. So if someone tells you I'm divorced, you should say, I need to see those papers. It doesn't matter who it is. But the narc is hoping to get you in the love bombing stage so quick that you're going to believe what they say. And you need to ask these questions before you even it seems premature, but if someone's trying to come into your life, you need to get these things cleared up before you even get into a romantic relationship. Because the narc is going to move quick, 90 days. They have 90 days to get you on the hook. And now you're not asking these questions.
So I want to ask, after you have probably experienced a knock, I saw some studies where they say some families were so used to being controlled, and once they got out of that situation, they went places and didn't know how to even order for themselves, things like that. So how do you, what kind of, I guess it's therapy involved afterwards to sort of get back to normalcy, but because could you be in a situation where you're looking at every man or everybody you run into, even if they just show one of those signs of being not, a knock, that you sort of wave them off and you might miss out on the good things? So is it continuous therapy after you get out of this to sort of come back to yourself?
Definitely. Because 6 months with a narc can send you on a 5-year tailspin in your life. Because it's like, when you see on the Weather Channel and they have that tornado and the guy is superimposed and it's kind of quiet inside of there. And all of this stuff is happening around. The narc is tearing up your life. And by the time you realize what's happening, your life has imploded. In 6 months, they can destroy mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, and take all of your trust in the human spirit away. So you do have to have, intense therapy, and you do have to have ongoing support to recover from that, or you will be walking around looking at everybody like you're going to do me harm, because you were in a place where you thought it was safe, and now now that you know that it wasn't, now you think everything is unsafe. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's just, I think a lot of times people, they say, oh, you attract what you are. And that's not true. If someone says that to you, you should be insulted. Like, that's not true. What's happening is people are walking around, they're not fully healed. So if you're walking outside and you get hit by the narc bus, by a bus, and the paramedics come, they're going to do a full assessment to see where the bleed out is, treat the bleed out, and cart you off to the hospital, put a cast on your leg. Oh, his leg was broken, put you on a crutch. But you're back out on the street and they haven't dealt with your psychological, your spiritual, your emotional, and financial injury. They've only dealt with the broken leg, and then you're hobbling along on a crutch, and here comes the narc bus again. They're looking for you. You didn't attract them. You were just out there not healed. And they're looking for what, right? So we have to have that.
And I think the other part of that too is, no, go ahead, Kaleema.
Oh, no, I was, no, you go.
I think the other part of that too is, along with getting the counseling, therapy, help that you need, is to take your own power back. I think a lot of people who've been hurt like that, you are wondering if this person's going to hurt me, if this person, and the power is not out there. It has nothing to do, once you get to a certain headspace, with what they're going to do. You have now set your boundaries. And if someone crosses that boundary, you know what to do. And that's the difference. That's what you didn't know before. But that comes after your healing, after doing your inner work. If you've done some healing and inner work and you're still wondering, if you're still sheltering your heart because you feel like this person, I wonder if this person's going to do it, I think that's the key, that you still need to do some more healing. Because at some point you should realize, yeah.
Exactly. And it takes not just the work, like with a therapist. You might have to call in a medical doctor, because I'm going to tell you, my anxiety was so great. Although I had no physical illnesses, I had physical pain, but it wasn't related to any illness. It was physical pain related to my anxiety from the situation. And so you have to think about, I need a therapist, I need a medical doctor, I might need a real estate agent, a financial planner, I might need a clergy member from my place of worship. You have all these things that have to kind of get in line to restore your life and get your power back. But if you have one of these things missing, you got a little crutch, and you're walking around with a mental limp, a psychological or spiritual limp, you don't have all your power back, and you're weak and vulnerable to the narc. Maybe not that narc, it could be a new narc. But it's not that you're attracting this into your life, you're just not healed. And so you're kind of stumbling over it. You're backing on the same corner, on the same street, trying to cross against the light, because you haven't learned what the red light looks like.
And Pam, as far as she's talking about therapy and things like that, you have written books that were pretty much based on things you have been through. Is the book writing also a part of the therapeutic process of someone? That's why I always say everybody has a book in them. And if everybody could write a book about something they've gone through, it would, in some cases, it would be a relief. And I always wonder about that process when somebody writes about something so personal. You've done it, Pam, and Kaleema, you've done it too. Is that process also a part of your healing? Just putting pen to paper?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Next to the mental health help and my community of faith, the writing has been major. I have sat down to write and an answer just comes up off the page. I have sat down to write to figure out an answer, But then I have sat down to write, and then an answer shows up for a question I didn't even know that I had. It is amazing. I don't even have words for it, but Kaleema, you understand.
I definitely understand, because a lot of people ask me, because during this time I was caring for my dad who was terminally ill. He had cancer, and I was caring for him in the home. And so all of this happened right then. And then I'm writing and all this stuff is going on. I'm working full time during COVID at HHS. So we were under the gun all the time. And someone asked me, how did I do that? And I really don't know. It's like all of a sudden, it's almost like a blur, the time that I was writing the book. Mm-hmm. It was almost a blur, and I kind of woke up and here it was. But I did want to say that everybody, I call it like my that writing is my superpower, right? That's what I say. Like that is just because it just happened. But I mean, I have been writing even for a living, but I'm just saying that's my thing that I've always been comfortable with. But everyone is not going to write a book, but they can exhibit and use their superpower and
read your book.
Trauma, you know, it could be playing chess, it could be cycling, it could be walking, it could be feeding the homeless, it could be caring for elders, caring for kids, whatever that thing is that bring you joy and give you strength and power. You have to just lean into it 150%. So when you get kicked off that narcissistic cliff and you're about to crash and burn, you're going to deploy that parachute, whatever it is, lean into it, and it's going to give you a safe landing. Mm-hmm. It's going to give you a safe landing. And so, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to write a book. It does mean that you have to find that thing, whatever it is, even if it's just gardening and weeding in your yard, that gives you strength and power and the energy to go forward. Lean into it 150%. It's going to save your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that goes into what you're calling.
Go ahead.
That goes into what you're calling post-traumatic growth, and I love that so much. If you could explain that for a little bit.
Okay. Well, I came across this while I was writing the book. I didn't even know I was going to write a book about narcissism. I thought I was writing a book about abandonment. But it led to that because this is the hallmark of the narc. And so the post-traumatic growth. So when you restore your life, I came across this in my research, once you go beyond that stage and when you think about, the moms, who are working against drunk drivers, when you have this tragedy and you use it to help other people who are recovering from this tragedy or to avoid the tragedy altogether, this is called post-traumatic growth, because you had this trauma that crippled you, you restored your life, and now you took it like to the 10th degree and you're helping other people. And that's what they call post-traumatic growth. I had never heard of it before. And then I came across it, in my research. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing, but we don't know that we're doing it, right? When we reach out to others and help them, through whatever trauma that you've already gone through.
Mm. And I kind of wanted you to share.
Do you find it necessary that you have to be?
Go ahead, Pam.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, talking about the post-traumatic growth, because I keep hearing people say, well, particularly in our houses of faith, sit down until you have to be 80, 90%. Is there a certain percentage that you have to be healed, or is it okay to just go ahead and move out while you are healing?
Well, I don't know about, I think your mic was kind of breaking up about sitting out. I will say this for me. I was writing my book while I was in therapy. I wasn't healed, clearly, right? And when I get to the end of the book, it was so crazy that, because in the book, all the interviews and the case studies, I couldn't interview myself, of course. So I found another writer, much like yourself, to say, hey, I want you to interview me. I had set the parameters of all the interviews. So we all had the same interview, right? And so when she finished my interview, I couldn't read it because I was still so traumatized. And I was thinking, every time I would go to read my interview, it would just send me into a tailspin. So I had to put it aside. And I said, and I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to finish this book because I can't read my own interview. But I decided to put it aside, and I wrote the rest of the book. I did all the other interviews with the other women. And then now 11 months have passed. and it's still causing me some angst. It's kind of like having the sunburn and you kind of touch it and realize it still burns. But I was able to read my interview enough to now insert it in the places, appropriate places in the book. So I wouldn't say for people to wait until they're healed, because I felt like for this, if I waited until I was healed, which could still an ongoing process 2 years later, that people would get hurt and not have the advantage of this information.
Right.
And so I felt like I can't wait until I'm healed.
I agree.
And then I also felt like,
yeah,
one of the other things you had mentioned, Slim, was I did feel like I wasn't going to be the same again. When you're talking about, you're going to look at everybody else kind of sideways. And I'm a very, outgoing person. I don't meet strangers. If you sit next to me on a plane, we're going to be best friends by the time this plane lands to wherever we're going, and I was worried so much that I wasn't going to be that person again. But you are, I'm telling people, you're going to be who you were again with proper therapy, and you're going to be even a better version of yourself, because now you're a little bit smarter. You have some more knowledge, wisdom, and understanding you didn't have before, but that comes with the bumps and bruises in life, and so I was really worried about that, and I didn't need to be. I was worried that this is going to change who I was as a person. But then I found, that's what therapy is for, to get you back to the best part of yourself, and then add some icing on the cake with that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And there you're like 2.0, you knew and improved. But I wouldn't say wait until you feel.
Right. And I have found that you've got kindness and empathy added on top of that as well. So, that changes for the better. And the other thing, I actually had the thought today, because I had been told over and over again that it was me and my personality, and nobody's gonna, you can't get along. You hear that message. It's you can't get along with other people. And I'm learning how to challenge those words that were said to me, whereas we just blindly believed them before.
We have to watch, and I learned this in therapy, because I was told in this whole process, so the narc is going to create a whole smoke screen, a whole fictitious war that's going on that doesn't exist, to justify what they're doing to you, right? And so I was told that I was stubborn, I don't quit. The person actually said this to me, you just don't quit. And my therapist said, that's interesting. He said, but you accepted that. He said, but you need to turn it around. Say, I'm tenacious. I'm not stubborn. I'm tenacious. I'm not, outspoken. I use my voice for my power. If they will put these negative connotations on you that don't belong, and we accept them. Right. And so, like you're saying, like people are telling you, oh, you don't get no, it's not that I don't get along with people. And when people are telling you that, I'm selective about the people that I want in my space. And I'm okay to move them out of my space. And even like during this last election, people were like, oh, you're immature if you're taking people off. I can determine who's going to be on my social media and who I want to see and what I want to see. I'm cleaning house. I cleaned up all these people. I would clean house, right? But I have the right to do that. And so when people say,
do that,
no, you have the right to determine, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience on this earth, and I have the right to determine how I want my experience to be and who I want to be a part of my experience.
Yeah, I am now aware that when the narc was saying you're this, like the person that said that you were stubborn and you turned it back to tenacious, what they are really doing, because they give so many tells that we don't recognize until hindsight. Yes. They're telling you where they're jealous of you at. They're telling you that this is the thing about you that intimidates me, but we hear it as a loss or something, as a failing. I was told you always got a plan inside of a plan. And what they really meant, what they were really saying is, you don't fall apart. I see you keep getting back up, but that's not what they were trying to frame it. They were trying to make me feel like, they were trying to make it negative, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Because anything that you have that's
like I was a schemer or something like that.
They will try to make your strength will definitely be an affront to them. And let me tell you, in my situation, I had applied for a job at ODU, and they offered me the job, but I was in federal government, like, and so, excuse me, they offered me the job, and then I said, I'm not going to take this job because I was getting ready to retire, so I had other options, right? But I said, I'm not going to take this job because they're not offering me enough. And he says to me, how much money do you need anyway? Right? And it's kind of like,
that's where he was jealous.
NARC is so bombastic. You hear stuff and you're kind of like, did I really hear that? And then you explain it away. Oh, the person's having a bad day. We're under a lot of stress. We're in the COVID lockdown. We're doing all this and the other. And so you kind of brush it off because it's outside of their behavior, but it's not outside of the normal behavior. That's the mask slipping off. And then you're seeing the true person. This is them. This is their behavior. And so he says to me, how much money do you need anyway? I have to work 2 jobs to have that kind of money. Well, now it's dawning on me that I didn't know we were in competition, but you're always in competition with the NARC, right? And I don't know this, but what I know is you have twice the degrees I have. And now I realize you are angry about that, but it never came out before. But we're in different professions. And so in my profession, there's a different level of whatever your ability to earn. And when you're in another profession, it's different. It doesn't mean that we're not competing, but this is in a normal relationship. We're not competing because everything is going into the pot. It doesn't matter. But that's what was said. Like, who are you? How much money do you need anyway? Who are you to turn down this job? But I know my worth, and I know they're lowballing me, and I know I need to have flexibility to take care of my dad and my home. And I've told them this, and I said, no, I don't want this job. Right. And so that's what they'll do. They'll try to make you even feel bad for doing a good thing because they'll say in their mind, it's making them look bad.
Right.
That
a lot of insight we get.
Yeah.
In hindsight.
That's why I want to write the book so people can get it on the front end. Don't get thrown off a cliff like me and learn it on the way down and get that parachute and all of that. You're just going to I need you to be 10 steps ahead of me. Yeah.
Well, that competition
a lot of people take that route.
Right. The competition on relationships and people together. And when one spouse makes more than the other, and it's a large disparity between the two, that's always a competition that needed to be either worked out before we got that widespread or when we first got together, because you don't have to really be a narcissist to do that, but there is a jealousy and there's a I hate to say, especially if the man is on the south side of that economic discussion, especially a Black man, it just doesn't work out right a lot of times unless you educate them.
Well, if the person is, that could be, I'm not disputing what you're saying, but I'm saying when you're dealing with a NARC, you're never going to know that, because the NARC in the beginning, in the grooming stage, they're going to ride for you. They're going to be down with you like 4 flat tires. They're going to ride for you like nobody else. They're going to put you on a pedestal. They're going to shop you around and show you around to people. They're going to talk about your accomplishments. This is what they're going to do. So you really don't have a way of gauging that in the grooming stage. And actually, by and large, most African-American women are the most educated population in the United States. And so that kind of, if we have to go by that theory, then we're going to continue to stay single. Mm-hmm. But I don't subscribe to that theory for myself, because I believe it doesn't matter. That's not what we're doing here. We're trying to merge two things together to support the whole. And however that support comes, we're doing this. And I have to kind of tell myself I can't subscribe to that, because that puts me in a worse situation. Mm-hmm. That means what? For African-American women, who are the most educated group in the United States, what does that mean for us? Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's not a me problem. And I'm sorry. It's a, you know,
Right.
it's something,
Right. And
yeah.
I'm
That,
wondering if that comes back to actually just maturity. I'm wondering if that is an issue
Yeah.
of what you said before, bad behavior versus narcissism, because I can't think of what Tabitha Brown's husband's name is, but he ain't got no problem. He's good. I don't think they have that dynamic there. And the way I see it, that's how that a positive example of that would look like, where the wife out earns the husband.
Yeah, but in this case, this was known out the gate, and it wasn't a
Yes.
discussion. It was really like, we're going to leverage these two things. You have more of this and I have more of that, and we're going to leverage these things, and we're going to be like, right? And we're leveraging both of these things right up until what happens is the narc decides they're done. And they have to look for a reason to be done, because you're not doing anything to make them done. Right? So now they have to bait you into doing something so they can say they're done. You understand what I'm saying? And so the narc will create this whole force field, this whole issue that's not there. So when they do what they're going to do anyway, they can point back to those people they groomed and say, see, they will say that the person is an alcoholic, that they're on drugs, that they quit their job, that they're abusing them. The narc will say all of these things. We had a huge fight. And so this is what, and the fight never happened. Right? And so the narc has to make a reason. So this wasn't an issue until the narc needs a reason to be done. And now they're going to, and you don't know it, they're going to bait you. And they're going to say, they know how to get under your skin, and they're going to try to incite you. Right? And when you respond, they're going to say, oh, woe was me, I'm abused, and now I have to run. Right? Or it could be an underlying resentment they had all along. And now they just had enough, because they're going to hop around. They have to have a reason to leave and make it your fault, or make it some drama, or they will never leave a place in a respectable way. There would be no conversation, you know. The stories in my book are just crazy. You know, the narc leaves, and the narc puts the wife out. She finds an engagement ring that doesn't belong to her. He's already engaged to someone before she even came out the house, you know, or, you know, all these kind of crazy things that you say, this must be a bad Lifetime movie, but it's the reality, unfortunately.
As we come to the close of the hour, one last question. You had the signs in your book, and not going to go through each one of them. I think it's like 9, and you can buy the book and purchase the book. But I want to say, is it a combination of all those that make up? Because say, for instance, I fall under number 7. Would that make me, can I be one of those, fall into one of those signs and be one of those guys? Or does it take a combination of all those things that you need to be looking for to make a real narc? I mean, a bona fide.
Yeah, bona fide narc. I would say if you see one of those things, you should kind of make a mental note. If you see 2 of those things, you should pause. You should get second eyes on this situation that's not being sucked in by the narc. Because what happens is, in hindsight, like Pam was saying, now all these things are going to come rushing forward. Like all these things that didn't connect, didn't make sense. I saw this person doing something that didn't make sense. But you know what you'll find in all of the women in my book, including myself, the family and friends all said, we knew something was wrong.
And they're smooth operators.
We knew something didn't feel right. Or I saw this person doing something, or they were in a place, or they were in something didn't, but people are so polite, right? And what they see on the outside is, now you found your soulmate, and they don't want to mess it up. But after the fact, everyone will come and they'll say, I knew this thing happened. And then when everyone starts talking, you realize nothing connected. But the narc is dependent on you not talking. Like the narc, I know we have to close. I know, like the narc will say, you're not around my family as much, because I'm protecting you from them. They're toxic. They have drama. They're always asking for money. They always get into a fight. They always need this, and they want this, that, and the third, but they're not protecting you from their family. They're isolating you and keep you in silos, because they have all these different lives, and you will not cross over. So they have family, friends, co-workers. Then they have the people where they have that secret life. All the narcs have addictions. It's part of the hallmark. It's part of how they self-soothe. Addictions to drugs, alcohol, pornography, sex. And they have a whole nother life over here. And so when things don't connect and people don't ask questions, this is how the narc slips through the crack. We have to really be like I said, if someone says I'm divorced, don't be ashamed to say, don't be embarrassed. Don't feel like you're intruding to say, I need to see your divorce papers. If someone tells you and you're in a relationship, oh, I own this house. One of the ladies, they living in the house, can't figure out why the father keeps calling and asking about the house because it wasn't his house. But he said he owned the house. Let me see the deed to the house. We need to find out about these things. People lie about their jobs. They lie about if they're married. They lie about if, they're taking care of their family. They lie about, even that, child support, whatever. We need to ask these questions and not, because the truth welcomes questions and the lie does not. Mm-hmm. If I'm telling the truth, you can ask me all the questions you want.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm lying, I don't want you to, and then they're going to they're going to have a temper tantrum because they're lying.
Right. Or covering up, particularly if they know what you've come through and given this current dating climate. Yeah. Ask me the questions. I want you to feel comfortable. But if you don't get that, that's a sign that something is up.
Transparency is, and it's not that you're not talking about something that someone did 20, 30, 40 years ago. And sometimes you are, because sometimes they are doing these same behaviors, but you really at least want to ask about the most recent history. And someone was challenging me and I said, you want to talk to the ex? And they were like, that's messy. Well, you don't have to do it. Somebody else can do it. And you don't want to talk to the ex to find out all the who shot John, all the details of what you really want to know. How did this person exit the relationship? That's all you need to know. And you don't have to be the one to ask. If you're thinking about getting married, you should be in counseling anyway. And if you're thinking about some type of situation like this, you can have someone else ask the question. But even asking, can I talk to your ex? And you're talking about getting married or moving in together, and they say no, then you should be pausing right there. You really should. And you really should. It's not like I said, some things just don't work out. But what you want to know is, how did this person, did they have a conversation and they decided this doesn't work? Right? Because I say that because had I done that, I would have been in a different space. Because this so-called conversation never happened. Because guess what? Our conversation didn't happen. And the conversation with the previous one didn't happen. There was no conversation. That's all you need to know. What happened? Was there a conversation? Was it a mutual agreement? That you don't need to know what caused the fallout. You need to know how the fallout was handled, because the narc won't do that. The narc is just every time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and Pam, you probably will agree. This is one of those books where you could come on every week and talk about it, and still not cover everything that's in the message of this book. I have to say, one of the people you interviewed, the man had been married 4 times and had several engagements. So just like you're saying, ask those questions up front, because if he had known he'd been married 4 times, that's a sign right there to get away from it. But before we go off, Pam, I want you to let people know that you are author of, is it 5 books or is it more now? I know it was 5.
It's I'm working on the 5th.
Working on the 5th. And so how can people get your book? And you also have a podcast, I believe.
I have a podcast that Kaleema is going to be on very shortly.
Oh, thank you.
So I write faith-based fiction on challenging issues, racism and generational curses, domestic violence, suicide, that kind of stuff. Because these were answers. I was looking for answers to questions that didn't seem to line up with what I was taught in my household of faith. And so books ended up coming up. And that happened after writing for the Virginian Pilot for a number of years, which is where I met Slim because I wrote stories on him. And so I do that. And then I just have such an appreciation for people who walk through darkness and then turn around and put it on paper to help other people, much like Kaleema is doing. And so that was what my podcast is. I interview authors who talk about their lived experiences. So I am actually finishing up the 5th book of the 5-book series because I already started the 1st book of the next series. And again, I enjoyed it so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to talk to him about how to do, I feel drained after writing this book. Can I ask her one question? How long was it between the first and the second book? Or was that your personal story? Or because I feel people keep asking me, like, when are you going to do a workbook? When are you going to do, I feel
they're all fiction. Okay. Right. It's honey, you're going to be drained. It is draining, but it's exhilarating at the same time. It was only like maybe a year and a half between the first 2, and then between the time gets shorter and shorter. Then between 2 and 3, I think it was maybe a year, and then between 3 and 4, that might have been a year or 2. This 5th one is taking longer only because I started a podcast and I'm not giving it the time I usually have been giving, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Did you have any deadline pressures?
Are you talking to me?
No, I was asking Pam, did she have any deadline pressures?
No, because I'm self-published.
Okay. That explains.
Are you talking to me or to Kaleema?
I was asking you. I was asking you, Pam.
I'm self-published, but I do. I am self-published, and I am an editor. I'm a freelance editor, but I have an editor. So I would tell her, me and her would agree that I would get it to her by February 15th, and then sometimes she'd get it on March 1st. So sometimes I did have the pressures, but not a lot of pressure. A lot of it was my own pressure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Kaleema, tell everyone how they can get your book and what's up with you. You're doing a lot of appearances. You have a lot of things that you're doing. So what's up now? What's up next?
Well, my book is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, and you can also get it on Kindle. I have a weekly live conversation on TikTok on Sundays at 4 p.m. from 4 to 6. And it moves quite fast. I'm just getting used to TikTok. And so my publisher has set me up on all the social media sites. So I've been working my way around. So I have a goal. Like when I get 6,000 followers here, I move to the next one. So now I'm working on TikTok. It's very new for me and it's fast moving, but I'm there every Sunday from 4 to 6. The book is at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, and Kindle. I have a YouTube channel. So mostly everything that goes through TikTok is uploaded to YouTube. I haven't focused on that yet. I'm just going from one to the other because it's overwhelming. I had several therapists that recommended my book to their clients, and they're pressing me for a workbook. And so that's why I was asking Pam about, I have to get to the workbook, but I have to remind people, and we have to set, I was writing the book while I was in therapy. So I'm just like, have to take a breath. So I am going to come out with a workbook. And then my sister said, oh, you need a workbook for children because she's a teacher. She said, oh, this behavior is here too. So those are the things that I'm working on. And I'm just kind of all over going and speaking engagements and events. I hope to connect with the university counseling services at HBCUs. So have roundtable discussions and trying to catch things at the ground level. My book is really appropriate for people 16 and up. So I want to catch those people right there to let them know, how to recognize these behaviors.
Yeah, that help is needed on HBCU campuses. All those relationships there. And Colonel, we're waiting on Colonel's book, 36 Years of the Military. So I guess that's coming up one of these days.
Yeah, I guess. I've one time I thought about it years ago, but I just never put that on the Richter scale.
I leave it to our two talented authors that we're talking to tonight.
Yeah, it'll be a good book because I've heard most of the stories. You know that.
Nice.
Okay, we want to thank everybody and thank you, our special guest, Kaleema Overton Ameen, and our guest host, Pamela Nichols. Thank you both. I'm glad you both came on. I know you would have something in common there as far as just to add to this discussion. And we're going to have you back and look for Kaleema on Pam's podcast. I'm sure that's going to come up real soon.
Absolutely.
Where
I'll
you
send
get
you the
further
link.
information.
Thank
And
you.
thanks everybody for watching, and we appreciate you. And make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share this valuable information. And we'll see you next time.